You arrive at the household and the walls feel enormous. The hallways go on forever. A head servant inspects you like a merchant inspects livestock. Your hands, your teeth, the shape of your face. She assigns you a new name on the spot, something poetic, something that pleases the ear. Peach Blossom, Jade Moon, Silver Willow. Your old name is never spoken again. From that first day, you understand something no one says out loud. You are property, expensive, carefully maintained property, but property nonetheless. The training begins almost immediately. Music is first. The guqin, 7 strings and years of your life. You practice in the cold of the early morning, the courtyard still dark, your breath visible in the air. A senior maid stands behind you and corrects your posture, your breath, your face. It's not enough to play the notes. You have to make him feel something. If you don't make him feel something, you are useless. Your fingertips crack and bleed. You keep playing. Then comes dance. Every angle of the wrist, every tilt of the head, every step timed to the beat, with the kind of precision that has to live in your muscles before it can look effortless. You practice on cold stone floors until your body knows the movements before your mind does. The silk of your training robe swirls around your ankles. Your feet are silent. That silence is part of the performance, then poetry, then calligraphy. Hours hunched over a low table, brush in hand, ink bleeding into paper, a senior maid watching every stroke. Then the art of conversation, how to speak without saying too much, how to laugh at exactly the right moment, how to make a powerful man feel brilliant without ever letting him sense he's being managed. Nobody warned you about this part. The exhaustion of it. The way you have to read a room in the first 2 seconds and already be adjusting. Is he angry today? Tired? Does he want to be challenged or flattered? You become a different instrument for each kind of listener, and you do it with a smile that never once looks like effort. The household is its own closed world. You eat, you sleep, you practice, you perform, you wait. The city exists somewhere beyond the compound walls, but you only know it as sound. Street vendors calling out, rain hitting the rooftops, the bells of distant temples drifting through the air. Sometimes at night you can smell charcoal smoke and something frying from the streets outside. The world goes on without you. You stop expecting to be part of it. Some girls form deep friendships with the other maids. These are the only relationships that feel entirely real. You know each other's moods before a single word is spoken. You cover for each other. You share information about which guests are dangerous, which senior servants are cruel, which rules can be quietly bent, and which will get you beaten. Because yes, the beatings happen. A broken string mid-performance, a spilled cup, a flash of visible emotion at the wrong moment. You learn to absorb punishment without flinching, to be perfectly still when every part of you wants to react. That stillness, too, is something they train into you, until you're not sure where the training ends and you begin. Be seen when you're meant to be seen. Disappear when you're not needed. Never form opinions loud enough for anyone to hear. Never want anything that hasn't already been given to you. The clothes help with the performance of all this. Silk robes and colors chosen to flatter the room, not you. Pale blues and soft greens in summer. Deeper reds and gold trim when the household entertains important guests. Your hair is pinned each morning with ornaments that belong to the household. Even your appearance isn't yours. You are dressed for someone else's eye, styled to reflect the taste of the man who owns the house. You wear the costume. You become the costume. After enough years, you stop being able to tell the difference. The food is another calculation. You eat better than you did before. That's often the thing that brings girls here in the first place. Families in poverty are told their daughters will be fed, clothed, educated. And technically, that's true. But the meals are watched, not too much. A senior maid hands you your bowl and lets the paws do the talking. Another invisible rule in a life made entirely of invisible rules. There are nights when the exhaustion is so deep you cannot name it. It is not tiredness exactly. It is something that lives in the parts of you nobody can see. You wash your face before bed and look at the water in the basin and cannot quite believe that the reflection belongs to you. The arranged hair, the careful expression that has become your default face, even when no one is watching. You practice smiling in a way that reaches your eyes. You practice it until you cannot tell when you are doing it and when you are not. The men who visit are a study in contrast. Some are genuinely cultured, scholars who treat the evening like something close to a real exchange. You discuss classical poetry. He quotes a line. You respond with the next. He laughs. For a moment, just a moment, you feel like a person. Then he leaves, and you remember you are not. Others are careless in a different way. They speak in front of you as though you aren't in the room. They hand you a cup to refill without making eye contact. No violence, just erasure. Being feared at least means being seen. This is something else entirely. Then there are the ones you fear, the ones whose mood shifts without warning, the ones who drink too much and become someone else, the ones who misread your composure as coldness and your warmth as invitation. You adjust. Small shifts in posture, in tone, in how much you laugh and when. It is the most precise and most dangerous work you do, and there is no one you can go to when something goes wrong. No reporting system. No appeal. What is done to your body is not your decision. One evening, years into this life, you overhear two older maids talking quietly in the corridor. They are speaking about a woman named Shui Tao. You've heard the name before, in the way you hear things here. In fragments, in lowered voices, passed between women who don't want the wrong person to listen. She came up the same way you did, they say. Lost her father young, entered the system with nothing. But her poetry was something that couldn't be managed or contained. It moved through the empire on its own, copied and passed hand to hand by scholars who didn't care where it came from, only that it was extraordinary. She designed her own paper for it, a smaller size, more intimate. Officials debated whether to give her a government position. The debate itself was remarkable. Nothing like that had ever been seriously considered for a woman like her. She never fully escaped the law's definition of what she was, but she became something the law hadn't accounted for. You sit with that for a long time afterward. There is also the matter of the ledger, because above all the poetry and the performances and the carefully arranged evenings, this is a business. Your training costs money. Your upkeep costs money. Every performance, every gift extracted from a patron, every social transaction that happens around you, it's all tracked. You are expected to earn back what was spent on you, and then to keep earning beyond that. You are not just an entertainer. You are an investment expected to return. Some households are run with a kind of cold fairness, demanding, but not sadistic. Others are something worse. You had no way of knowing which you were walking into until you were already inside the walls. And by then, you had no way out. Some women do find power here. You see it with your own eyes. A maid 3 years your senior earns enough in gifts and patronage to quietly set aside money of her own. She protects a younger girl once, intervenes in a way that costs her something, and doesn't explain it. You understand without asking. She is building something, inch by inch, in a system designed to make that impossible. You watch her and think about Shui Tao, about what it costs to refuse to disappear. The years move. You notice things changing before anyone says them out loud. There is a particular quality to waiting. You get used to it the way you get used to cold. First it's unbearable, then it's simply the temperature. You wait between performances. You wait for the next set of instructions. You wait for the guest to decide when the evening is over. Waiting becomes so familiar that on the rare mornings when no one needs anything from you, the quiet feels wrong. You sit in it, like you've forgotten what to do with your own hands. A new girl arrives and is placed closer to the front of the room. A guest's eyes move past you in a way they didn't before. It happens gradually, the way light shifts in the afternoon, too, slow to catch the moment it changes, but unmistakable once you see it. Younger. Always younger. That is the engine underneath everything else. Some women get absorbed into the general servant pool when this happens. Domestic labor for the rest of their lives. Some get married off to lower-ranking men, the arrangement made by the household without much discussion. Some are simply released, out into a city they barely know, with whatever savings they manage to hide and no clear path forward. The city beyond the walls keeps changing. Dynasties rise and collapse like weather. Tang becomes, Song becomes Yuan, becomes Ming. You know this not from any announcement, but from small shifts. The style of a patron's robe, the music that becomes fashionable, the way certain things are suddenly forbidden that weren't before. The world reorganizes itself constantly around you, and you are always the thing that stays the same. Young girls arrive. Old arrangements continue. The guqin sounds the same in every century. You hear about a woman in Nanjing who chose something different. Her name is Li Xiangjun. The story comes to you the way all useful information comes, whispered between maids, passed like contraband. She was in the Qinhuai district, one of those neighborhoods along the river where the lanterns hang over the water every night and wealthy men arrive by boat. She had real skill, a real reputation. And when the dynasty fell, when powerful men began shifting their loyalties to the new Qing rulers, she refused to perform for them. She was barely in her 20s, nothing to protect her, no legal standing, no one with authority on her side. She refused anyway. Her story got written down, got performed on stage. People thought it was worth preserving. You think about what that means. Not the fame of it, just the act itself. A woman with nothing but her own sense of what was right, and the willingness to hold it, even when holding it cost her everything. You've heard of Gu Mei too, a woman who went further than most, who caught the attention of a powerful official and eventually became his legal concubine, who had opinions about the collapse of the dynasty and said them loud enough to be recorded, who was not, in the end, only what the system decided she was. None of them escaped cleanly. That's not the story. The story is something smaller and harder than escape. It's the refusal to be only what you were made to be. Most women in this life never got to refuse anything. They moved through their years quietly, did what was required, survived or they didn't, and left behind almost no evidence, no official record, no court document, no poem attributed to their name. Just the echo of a guqin string fading in an empty room. Just a name that was never their own. Back to you. Back to that compound. Back to the cold stone floor and the sound of your instrument in the gray morning light. You don't know yet what you'll become. You only know today. The passage you need to practice, the guest arriving at dusk, the senior maid watching you from across the room. You draw the string. The note rings out clean and perfect. You were trained to make people feel something. It turns out you feel things too. That was the part they never accounted for. In all the buying and naming and training and using, in all the machinery of a system that treated women as refined instruments, nobody thought to ask what it was like to be the instrument. To have a mind sharp enough to discuss classical poetry and no legal right to your own life. To build friendships that were the most real things in your world inside walls you could not choose to leave. To be called a flower so many times that you had to remind yourself, alone in the dark, that you were not a flower, you were a person. And some of you found ways, small ways, enormous ways, ways that history almost missed, to make sure that was known. There is a moment, one specific moment, that you will remember long after everything else blurs together. You are 17, maybe 18. A guest has just left. The room still smells of his wine and the incense that was lit to impress him. You are putting away the guqin, case open on the floor, fingers moving through the familiar motions, and you catch yourself thinking about something he said. A line of poetry he quoted, something classical, something beautiful, and without deciding to, you complete it. Silently, in your head. The next line comes to you fully formed, and then the line after that, and then a variation that is better than the original. You stop. You stand there with the instrument in your hands. You just wrote something. You know it. You can feel the difference between retrieving a memorized line and making something new. You put the guqin away and say nothing. There is no one to tell, and telling someone might make it something that could be taken. So you keep it. The only thing in this life that is entirely yours. That is what Shui Tao understood. That is what Li Xiangjun understood, in her own way, on the night she looked at a room full of powerful men and felt something inside her go still and clear. You can be used without being emptied. You can perform without surrendering what is real. The system can own your name, your clothes, your body, your hours, your future, but it cannot own the part of you that watches everything and understands it completely. That part remains. In the dark, after the guests leave and the lanterns are trimmed, and the compound goes quiet, you lie still and hold it. The music they made you learn. The poetry you memorized until it became something you felt rather than knew. The way certain lines land differently now than they did when you first learned them. Because now you have something to compare them to. Now you know what loss feels like from the inside, and what longing is, and what it costs to smile when you don't mean it. The education they gave you to make you useful ended up making you something they didn't intend. It made you someone who understood exactly what was happening to her. And understanding, even without the power to change it, was its own kind of territory, a place they couldn't enter, a place that was entirely, stubbornly, yours.